So again, aloha mai kākou. Today we have a presentation by Cheyenne. Cheyenne is the Mauna Kea Watershed Alliance Manager. His presentation is titled Mauna Kea Watershed Alliance Watershed Partners Collaboration at Landscape Scales on Mauna Kea. Cheyenne, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Okay. Aloha kako. I'm gonna go to share screen. And I just want to double check and everybody see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. One time I was talking for about 5 minutes and nobody told me they couldn't see the PowerPoint. I was like, oh, gotta go back. Okay. Mahalo Serena, mahalo Olivia. My name is Cheyenne Hiapo Perry. I'm the manager for Mauna Kea Watershed Alliance. We have a small crew right now. Most of you know them. We have Marco, Dylan, and Kaio, who are RCH regular staff. And then we also have Lono, who's a Kupu Ainakor, and Kalani Green, who's a Kupu CLDP. And then I like to start with this imagery just so we can see the kind of the vastness and the of Mauna Kea. And we have a person kind of at the, we have a person right here. So we're just kind of acknowledging the uniqueness, the specialness of Mauna Kea in the landscape. So the main projects, we're going to go over our current projects in this presentation. So that includes our Waipahoehoe Management Unit. That's about 1,100 acres. We're going to go over our Kanaka Leonui Bird Corridor. It's about 525 acres. And then we'll also discuss some of the partner assistance projects that we have currently. And then some of those partner assistance projects we actually have finished up in the past year or so. By the end of the presentation, we'll also get into some of the areas and ideas that the partnership has been talking about as far as management on Mauna Kea. Yeah, so I think everybody's pretty familiar with the organization, the way that the watershed partnerships are set up. But I'll just go ahead and briefly go over some of the basics. So we are part of the Hawaii Association of Watershed Partnerships. There's 10 of us across Hawaii. We are we actually just did a proposal, and when we consolidated all of the partners, we have 80 watershed partners across Hawaii. That is about 2.2 million acres of partner lands. And when you look at the total land mass of the main Hawaiian islands, it's almost 50% of the land in Hawaii. So if we zoom down to our level at the moku size for Hawaii, we see that we've got about 22 partners on our island. A good mix of federal, county, private ranches and state partners. We're going to kind of zoom in to Mauna Kea Watershed Alliance, and then that's around 416,000 acres total of partner lands. And we did have Parker Ranch is one of our newer members, so we also included their lands hand-drawn as part of that shapefile, that polygon. Yeah, so about 22 partners on our island. So kind of back to the basics. So mahalo to JP John Price from Hilo provided these images just to kind of set the foundation for the discussion. This is what Hawaii Island looked like prior to humans, to Kanaka's coming. And then kind of over the years, this is kind of what it looks like presently. So the gray kind of represents the non-native systems or systems that have been altered or modified over time. And we're gonna pay specific attention to this area right in here. So kind of on the eastern Mauka slope of Mauna Kea. So our vision and I do want to mention that besides the 7 watershed partners that we have that are the land owning partners, we also have 3 affiliate partners, so a total of 10. The vision is to protect and enhance watershed ecosystems, biodiversity, through good, thoughtful management. Some of the other things that we can work on include economic sustainability and providing recreational. That could be also environmental education programs, subsistence, educational, and research kind of opportunities. Our affiliate partners are not landholders necessarily, but they do have some interest on the Mauna Kea landscape. For example, the Nature Conservancy actually has a conservation easement up here on the Mauka part of Kuka Ranch. Pacific Islands Fish and Wildlife Office are interested in being able to support activities that support endangered species. And then the Forest Service, of course, has the research and education overlay for the Forest of Lapuhoihoi, which includes Forest Reserve and Natural Area Reserve. So that's Lapuhoihoi right there, which is the wet side unit of the HETF, the Hawaii Experimental Tropical Forest. So it's the 10 partners. And then just kind of what the system looks like, the ecosystem. So this is just what the water on average looks like, the median annual rainfall. We can see that the wettest areas are Mauka, Onomea, and then kind of gets drier as they come up against the Mauna Kea and then wrap around. This is what the forest looks like. And this is a gap analysis that was done in the mid-2000s. We can see this is what the gorse kind of looked like back then, these patches of purple. We do have from the overall polygon, so this is about 500 acres that are potential partnership lands. Most of the intact native forest is on the eastern slope of Mauna Kea. The rest of it has been, and then there's also these mamane forests in light green along the Mauka parts of Mauna Kea. But a significant part of the forest and the mountain had been changed mostly to pasture land, but there was also some timber forest planted as well. So this is kind of our main catch for water on Mauna Kea. And this here's our partnership. That's a little we have like I said, we have a total of 10 watershed partners. The DOFA has been one of the common partners with all the 10 watershed partnerships across Hawaii. The Kuka Ranch, we're still they're under new ownership with Frank Vandersloot, so we are trying to figure out what the relationship would be there. But all of the partners kind of contribute to the overall management, and then partnership projects with Mi'kmaq. So even though it kind of looks like this, it could also look like that. So yeah, we do. There are projects that kind of come through the Mauna Kea Watershed Alliance, but there's also projects that are just worked with between the different partners I worked on. Again, for those who are not super familiar to the work that we do, so what does actual watershed management look like on the ground? It's very similar for all of us that do watershed management in Hawaii. There's often a fencing component, and for the most part, what we're trying to do is develop our cross-boundary management units. So that includes installing fence in these remote natural areas, inspecting the fences, making sure that they're working. We also would, within those units, manage the feral ungulates there. For us recently, that's included a lot of helicopter drives and trapping. We control the weeds, the non-native invasive species that might be in the unit. And then we kind of keep an eye on that through a different, the surveys that we do consist of bird surveys, and we also do weed and ungulate surveys, feral ungulate surveys. And that would be for a protection type of project. So that would be for like an intact native forest. So you have a canopy. The other type of restoration or management that we might do is restoration. And so that is similar. It is more expensive to do restoration, but that would be actually outplanting trees, working with volunteers, and then trying to increase the forest size and acreage. We also have a pretty active environmental education program. This is the way we kind of connect to our community. Generally, the watershed partnership are large land organization. landowning organizations and affiliate partners. So the environmental education is really the way that we can stay in touch with our community. Our program is mostly working with local schools around Mauna Kea. So probably in the area of 80% of our volunteers are from the schools around the island. And then we also do some workforce development as well, support local jobs. And then I think a lot of folks have seen this. So this is the Aina Mauna Legacy Program map. This is actually the THHL management plan. It's a 100-year plan. And this was this planning process for Hawaiian Homes came after Parker Ranch had leased these lands. It's about 56,000 acres. Had leased the lands for about 100 years. And so it had been in cattle that whole time. And so this plan that came out in around 2010 is looking to having Hawaiian Homes as the primary manager for the area. And so you can see just by looking at the map, it's very diverse. There's there's native forest kind of protection restoration, but there's also sustainable koa forestry. So they're looking at growing koa to provide funds for homesteading. There's gorse control and timber management. There is some pasture land still left. There's even a little bit of potential area for homesteading. And then native forest to the south. So yeah, so we are mostly concerned, our organization is mostly concerned with the conservation part of it, the watershed management. So we have KBC, that's one of our units there. That's mostly a connectivity project and basically connecting the lower forests that are capped at 6,000 feet to the upper forest at 8,000 feet for native birds. Kind of, that's not to scale, but yeah, that's KBC, 525 acres. And then if you look at this next one, it's actually a larger idea that has restoration happening and protection happening across, this is Pi'i Honua Mauka or Uka. It's the upper part of this Ahupua'a. And then there's thousands of acres that would be restored in here, also in conservation management. And then another corridor that would go up the Wailuku River, very similar to the Kanaka Leonui bird corridor. Similar function. And then, so that's the Waipohoihoi management unit. And I do want to point out that the Hakalau Refuge would be just north of this unit. Our two units are on Hawaiian Homes, KBC as well as Waimau. And then Hilo Forest Reserve is Makai of this area. Yeah, so that's a Waipohoihoi management unit. It's about 1,100 acres. It is, as you can see from the imagery, this is the nicest ohia forest that Hawaiian Homes has in Hawaii. South of that, we have more ohia, but it's more sparse, and this has a lot to do just with the land relationship and the land use from before. You can also see that we have our gorse patch that's right mauka of us, so there is a potential wildfire hazard. And then you can also see how Hawaiian Homes and Hakalau are kind of working to have this buffer, manage this buffer here that would contain the 5,000 acre monotypic gorse. And at the same time, Hawaiian Homes is working really hard to try and reduce the amount of gorse that's on the outside of this perimeter. So a different management strategy is kind of suppression and eradication for this gorse out here. Yep. And then Hakalau Refuge is right on this corner and then going this way. For those that have seen it, there's a story map that's available online that Brian Tucker had kind of worked on. But this imagery kind of just shows the rot effects of Pi'i Honua Uka. So this is just kind of south of us. It's kind of just south of the Wailuku River as it comes down into Hilo at around I would say 5,500 to 6,000 foot elevation. So pretty healthy forest. You know, we got all this kind of dark green. That's all ohia. This is around 2013. And then 5 years later, we start to see some of the impacts of rapid ohia death happening. And these have been tested and have come up positive for rapid ohia death. And then within the last 3 years, this is kind of what it looks like currently. So we're estimating a loss of around 70 to 80% of this ohia forest in this area just over the last 3 or 4 years. And this area is in the hundreds of acres at the headwaters of the Wailuku River. So rapid ohia death is a big and feral ungulates is the main management challenge that we have in this Pi'i Honua Kuka area where the Waipohoehoe management unit is. And that's kind of what it looks like, an on-the-ground view of that ohia forest. We are concerned, but we do recognize with ROD, that's not an easy one to manage. But we are trying to set it up so that the feral ungulates would be removed from this area, so you would have that same kind of pressure. And the intention is that we'd actually have some nurse logs, and have some ohia trees that could be dropping seeds onto that, and then the ohia forest would regrow. And here's so we're back up at the Waipohoehoe management unit, just north of that area that we were just in. We did an aerial survey for rod and then also for feral cattle in 2019. So in this survey, we found so kind of two-pronged. It was good the way that we had set it up with UH Hilo, the SDAT, with Ryan Peroy then. We were able to kind of get a visual on suspect rod trees and also to test them. We have been working with BISC and IPIF as well with the Forest Service to conduct. They have some permanent plots in there, and we're able to go in there and do some testing. So we do know where the rod trees are. The other thing that we did was look at the number of feral cattle in the area. And so at this time in 2019, the estimate was about 450 feral cattle, which was higher than we had anticipated. And so a lot of the work we're doing at Waipohoehoe Management Unit, we're managing the feral ungulates. Initially, due to our license with Hawaiian Homes, we were basically we could not dispatch the animals, so we had to find ways to get them out of the unit in a non-kill and no-kill way. So we did a bunch of these one-way cattle gates, top left image, and that was very effective. We had 3 or 4 gates that were very along known cattle trails, and they were basically just leaving the unit and couldn't get back in. The other way that we've done it is using helicopter drives, and so we've driven in the area of 30 feral cattle out of the unit using this method. You would bait the area, and then you come in with a helicopter and with David and kind of push them out. You can barely see it, but there's a wing fence that comes here. This is our management unit fence here. So they go out the main gate, and then we have somebody on the ground who just closes the gate. They can't get back in. So that has been pretty effective. We're down to, we think, around in the area of 30 to 40 feral cows left in the unit today. The other thing we do is a bunch of our outplanting here. We host HYCC groups. We do bird surveys, like I was saying, in this area as well. We do fence checks. So it's a really, we're protecting this ohia forest, and so we'll be able to kind of, as the feral ungulates leave and we're staying on top of the weeds, this will be a very pristine area that abuts the Hakalau Refuge and the Hilo Forest Reserve. So that project's going really well, despite delays. The other management unit that we have is the Kanakalenui Bird Corridor, about 525 acres. The intention of this is to connect our forest between 6,000 and 8,000 feet through pasture land, former pasture land, and then have a way for the mosquitoes to move mauka away from avian disease that's carried by, kalamai. Have a way for our native forest birds to move mauka away from avian disease carrying mosquitoes. And I'll have another image that kind of highlights that. You can see a lot of koa trees on the makai part, and then as we get higher up it becomes a Mamane dominated forest. So with this restoration, it's just been kind of a slow and steady approach, and that seems to be working. We are able to even collect seed from some of the koa trees that we planted 10, 15 years ago. So mosquito-borne diseases, I think everybody has kind of seen this imagery, but we have, hapu that might get knocked over and hold water from pigs, from feral pigs, and then the mosquitoes will breed there, and then they'll bite our native birds, and then they'll get sick. Our native birds have varying levels of resistance to avian disease like malaria and pox. And then mahalo to American Forest. So this, for the Kanaka Bird Corridor area, we have a couple of partnerships happening right now. So Hawaiian Homes still contributing towards the management of KVC. And then we also have American Forest. One of our partners has also helped, we're assisting each other with the work there. And then the Hakalau Refuge also to the Makai part of KVC. But this kind of highlights the idea, so we have this mosquito line at 4,500 feet that seems to be rising in elevation coming up. And then we have our corridor area that we're planting trees so that our native birds can move mauka away from the mosquitoes. And then these are some of the plants that we plant. And then some of the endangered the birds that are benefiting from that. Yeah. So and mahalo to American Forest for creating this imagery. We're just borrowing it. So the management at KBC is, mostly ecological restoration. So we do a lot of planting there, working with partners and then with our staff, planting akala and koa. We have several different types of planting methods, everything from just planting koa trees to provide overstory to planting diversity. So within our native forest, then we plant. It was a fairly monotypic forest when we first started working there, mamane and koa. But we've been able to kind of up the diversity as well as the total acreage of canopy. And then lots of seed collecting with staff, and then also with this is a young woman that came in with a Blue Water Exchange, which is a Forest Service leadership program. And then so she's just collecting some mamane seed from one of the mamanes that we actually had planted. So the need for seed. Yeah. And then I think with restoration, I was very cocky in the beginning. I was like, we can do this in 10 years. Yeah, thinking more like 30, 40 years, just kind of slow and steady. And then we kind of envisioned this as the KBC as being kind of like an ahu or like a feather cloak. And how the ahu'ula here, you can see that shape. And then it's the same thing. So as we plant trees, they're kind of likened to placing a feather in a feather cloak. And for those that have been on our huaka'i, some feather cloaks would take 7 generations. So we have to be very patient and just kind of just know the intention and the goal, and let's keep that in our mind as we do our work. Yeah, the really cool thing that we've talked about with Halau here, and then just the folks that kind of go up there on the mountain. This ahupua'a where KBC is located is called humu'ula. But one of the cool things that kind of came up is that humu actually means to stitch. And so it's almost like when you're looking at this, this is our size scale, 6 foot, 7 foot guy, 8 foot guy scale. And then this here is kind of that same idea where you're stitching the landscape together, but at this much hundreds of acres scale. And the future would be Wailuku River. So that would be another stitch that would kind of help to bring that upper landscape and lower landscape together. Cool, right? Some of the partner assistance projects that we've been working on and continue to work on include working with the Hakalau Refuge, and we did a frog pond fence installation project with them that was utilizing CIP funds with the refuge. We also worked with Hawaiian Homes doing an Ua'u protection unit. I think is about 100 acres, and this is the one that's kind of Mauka side, Kahina area. And this is kind of just a predator control fence to protect some ua'u burrows and nesting areas that were in that area. And then we're also working with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife and the Hilo Forest Reserve to build another unit that's just makai of the Waipahoehoe Management Unit and still abutting the Hakalau Refuge, where they're gonna about the same size, about 1,000 acres. That we're calling that the Nukupahu Management Unit. But that's the idea. That's what we're trying to do. So when we're looking at doing our projects, we want to go cross boundary, and we want to go multiple partnership benefit and at scale. Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to review the projects and kind of take a look at the larger landscape picture. And that'll kind of set the way for, if anybody has any questions at the end of the presentation. And so here we have Lapohoihoi HETF, or, the NAR and the Forest Reserve, the forests. We have kind of our current project. So kind of coming from, I'll come from south and going up. So we're working on our Waipahoehoe Management Unit here on Hawaiian Homes. We had some CIP funds, and we helped the Refuge to take their 4-foot fence up to 6-foot fence in this corner here, Puakala. We worked with Hawaiian Homes to do the Ua'u Protection Unit up here. We're working with Hawaiian Homes, American Forest to do the Kanaka-Leonui Bird Corridor in here. And then we also worked with the Refuge. There was some trees, some large eucalyptus trees that had fallen between Piha and Maulua, had damaged the fence, about 1 kilometer of damage or around there. And so we worked with the state, also CIP funded, to fix that fence. And then the state also worked on that DOFA. Right, so that's current situation. We have a couple more CIP projects that we're working on. This is the Hilo Forest Reserve. This is the Nukupahu Management Unit. It's about another 1,000 acres in Hilo Forest Reserve. Very similar management as Hakalau and Waipahoehoe Management Unit. And then we also are doing a project with Hawaiian Homes where it's a fence line that goes all the way across. And the long-term goal of that is to get the feral cattle out of this Pi'ihonua Uka area and more up Mauka. Yeah, and so that's just a cross fence right now. Waipahoehoe, in line with the Aina Mauna plan, Waipahoehoe Management Unit is the first closed management unit of that idea. And then so kind of happening in the future, it's looking pretty good. We've got this Mamane Forest Protection Unit here that's on Hawaiian Homes. Hawaiian Homes has received some REPI funds to help with that, and I think we'll assist too, depending on the timing. We put in numerous grants. Oh, come on. I should also mention that we're working with researchers at KBC as well. So currently we're working with Pat Hart, but we've also worked with John Price and Steve Hess to do research at KBC. Yeah, so if things work out, we're going to get more support to do work in this upper area. But remember, this would be more of a commercial co-op forestry type of work that would be north of here. But if that grant works out, then it also includes some funding for KBC as well. One of the newer ideas is this idea of Maulua having a cross fence for the fence units that are Mauka that can split the unit basically in half, and then working to make sure that all of the feral ungulates are removed from both of those units. And then there's also with HETF, there's the Valley of the Gods unit. So if you guys have seen the Lapohoehoe management plan, they have a Ha'akoa unit that's right up in here. And then there's another unit kind of just makai of that one. And then there's one more, a few 100-acre unit that was here called Valley of the Gods. That is still changing because of the impacts of ROD. So it is possible that the idea of that unit might move more up the mountain and away from the impacts of rot. Yeah, and then if we have any of the partners in here, kind of the longer term, we're also trying to figure out. So we have some pretty good representation kind of in these Mauka areas of work, partnership work. The one thing that we are thinking about in the future is that we have Kamehameha Schools and Queen Liliu Okalani Trusts at these Makai areas. They're difficult to access. We have done remote surveys for them, so they have some baseline information, but really hard to get into. This particular area with Kamehameha Schools is really nice though. Uma. They've got some beautiful forests, lots of native birds, and really unique compared to the other areas that we've surveyed for Kamehameha Schools. Queen Liliu Okalani Trust is similar. Yeah, so just trying to figure out what that management might be for that area. But it is something that we would look at in the future. And then we also have this ranch area that we should also be thinking about. Kuka Ranch, we're not really sure what the relationship is right now because it's a new owner. But Parker Ranch is now a partner with us. So this would be another area that we want to kind of get into. Okay, so that about covers it. Oh, well, wait, not yet. Don't forget the planning. So so all of those different projects that we're talking about, we are operating off of a plan that is really outdated for us, outdated for us. And so we just received funding, a Water Smart watershed funding that's gonna take us through a 3-year planning process. And so during that planning process, we'll be able to really improve the foundation, and then from that be able to do another 5 to 10-year action plan, as well as a wildfire management plan and response plan. Yeah, so we are going into a major planning time or chapter, and this will be a time that we can look at all of those different projects again together. Yeah, and so if anybody has any questions or anything, that's my email and my contact. This image here is just that's the last watershed Huaka'i partnership Huaka'i that we had. And basically what we're doing was looking at Parker Ranch's the area that they're going to start to do some restoration in. That's Sac Judd right in the middle there. And so that's called the Pipeline Reforestation Project. Yeah. So, and that would be super valuable in the sense that it's going to be it's kind of that middle area between Ko'ohe, which is managed by the Mauna Kea Forest Restoration Project, Ko'ohe for Palila habitat. So this Parker Ranch area is kind of right in between Pu'umali and Ko'ohe. So it makes a lot of sense to have that type of management happening there with Zach. So we're supporting them, and they are going through that process as well. Yeah, so lots going on. Okay, and was pretty quick. Does anybody have any
Mahalo,
questions?
Cheyenne.
Yeah.
Thank you for that presentation. You all are doing a wonderful job stitching together that community and kind of making sure that the watershed is being protected. We do actually have some questions in the chat, and then we also have somebody already raising their hand. So let me read through the questions in the chat really fast, and then Corey, you can either drop your question in the chat or you can come on after. So Mary said, awesome presentation, Cheyenne. And then we have a question from Kule. Mahalo nui. Are those raw photos of Pi'i Honua time comparison online?
Yes, they are there. I will see if you give me a minute. There's actually a story map. And so in that story map, it talks about the whole island. So when I can find that link, I will send it to you.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it is online. it is online.
Okay, the next question is from Mary. Do you see any future control of gorse other than limiting its spread?
Oh, sure. So we I should talk about kuleana a little bit. So or responsibility. Um Hawaiian Homes has the kuleana of the overall gorse population, the 5,000 acres or so. And then also there's probably another 5,000 acres that's kind of spread out across the landscape. They have that main one, that main kuleana. Our kuleana has more to do with the units. And so within the management units, we do control the gorse heavily. Um, we do work with Hawaiian Homes. An example would be with Hawaiian Homes, maybe like just Mauka of our Waipahoehoe management unit, there was about 300 acres of gorse. And so DHHL made it a priority to the way that they do the management is they call it like a crush and spray. So they have a bulldozer that kind of drops the gorse down, and then they'll spray it immediately after. And it's actually a pretty good way of doing it. It's very effective in the sense that you're pushing the gorse over, so it acts as like a shade. It kind of shades out the new gorse that's popping up. And it's also less fire hazard because the gorse is not standing up. It's laying against the ground. Like if you just spray gorse, it'll be 6 to 8 feet of fire hazard. And they'll stand up after they pass away, they'll stand up for years after that. And then part of our kuleana working with them is that we're gonna go and control the gorse that's under the canopy or in the forest around that area. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that we do. I think what Hawaiian Homes is hoping is that someone will come in and say for the 5,000 acre gorse population, that they'll come in and say, I can grow timber here. But to do that, I got to get rid of the gorse. So they get rid of the gorse and then they plant the timber. But I think that's kind of the long-term strategy with the 5,000 monotypic acres that's at around 6,000 foot elevation. There has been talk about using fire, prescription burns, but yeah, that's a little dangerous. I don't ever want a fire to be named after me. I would leave. I would leave Hawaii. Yeah, so for us in Hawaii, it's like the use of fire is a really new tool. Um, any future control? Yeah, so I think that's the main. Yeah, so the stuff that's outside the 5,000 acres that's being actively worked on by Hawaiian Homes and by us and by other partners in the area. And then that 5,000 acres of monotypic gorse is kind of hold the line until we can get a kind of a longer term solution. But if you guys look like for the gorse, it's really interesting. The around the early 2000s, so like the gorse population you can even go on Google Earth Engine. It's a time lapse imagery across the planet. So if you go and look at that, there's you can see the gorse, and then before 2000s, the gorse was actually two smaller populations. And I'm thinking probably I'm thinking not more than a couple thousand acres. What happened was in the early 2000s, there was a bunch of wildfires that happened in the gorse. And then after that happened, the gorse connected to each other. And then that's the 5,000 acres that we're dealing with today. Yeah, so if somebody had come in after those fires and managed the gorse as they were coming up, it might have been a different story. Hope that answers the question. Hey, Instagram. I'm gonna while we're waiting for any other questions, I'm gonna look and see if I can find that link. But yeah, open to any other questions with anyone.
Corey, go ahead.
Hi, Cheyenne. Was curious about that Valley of the Gods area, and would you be able to describe sort of how I think you said Rod is playing out in that space. So would you be able to describe it maybe in relation to the Pi'i Honua area, and then also talk about whether or not the state has plans or Forest Service is thinking about future steps for once that plays out?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. To me, it looks a lot like the edges of our forests are getting kind of hit hard. Lapahoihoi is to the north and kind of on the. It's just when the native forest is kind of drying out. It's kind of a trend. It's Lapahoihoi forest is a very unique forest just because of that transition zone. So it's not like the middle part of the eastern forest that we have on Mauna Kea. They got really hit hard by rapid ohia death, and the reason they call it the Valley of the Gods or Land of the Gods area is because the ohia that's there is likely in the 600 years old, 700 years old. I mean, these are really big ohia trees, but they were very susceptible to rod. And so when rod happened, so basically a lot of those trees had passed away. And that's also a significant hazard because a lot of those trees end up falling on the road, on the one access that's kind of in and out. Yeah, I don't know it feels like a lot of the lower elevation areas are kind of like they're getting kind of hit pretty hard. I think the idea though is to so originally the intention was of that was to protect that area, but there is still ohia trees that are more Mauka side that are still not they're not being as much affected by rod. And so I think it would be up to to DOFA and all the folks that are working up there. But they last time we spoke, we were talking the conversation come up as maybe that idea of that management unit, that couple 100-acre management unit, because its intention was to protect those trees. Maybe that would move to other ohia trees that are healthier. But yeah, I don't know what the long term would be. The Pi'i Honua Uka ohia that was impacted a lot was there was also a really strong history of feral ungulates in the area. I think that we got to Waipahoehoe Management Unit kind of just in time. I would have preferred to have started working in there 2 to 3 years earlier. I think it would have been better. But I think we did get to Waipahoehoe Management Unit just in the nick of time to kind of keep that forest healthy. But that forest outside of there is really impacted by feral cattle. And feral cattle is not the same as like domestic cattle. Like they have nutrition needs that are not being met by ranches, and so they get a lot of their nutrition from barking the trees. So barking the trees, wounding the trees, and then rapid ohia death gets into the trees. So yeah, I think from my observation, I think that's a big part of it. So they were already not the healthiest, and then rod came along. Yeah. So if anything, like what we're hoping to show with Waipahoehoe Management Unit is by managing the forest for health, that would make them resistant to the fungus.
So there is another question in the chat from Mary. What percentage of the watershed area is fenced, and what is the ultimate goal?
I don't know. I don't know that question. I don't know because I don't know all of the individual partners fenced unit areas. I could guess. I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna try and see if I can figure this out later, but I'm gonna say that's fenced. Are we gonna count Mauna Kea with the Palila critical habitat fence? I don't know. I don't even want to answer. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the ultimate goal is to have is health. Is the health of the overall partnership area. And then it doesn't mean that everything has to be restored or protected, but the things that make sense to restore and protect, we want to do that, and we want it to be connected and protected. So one of the things that we didn't talk a whole lot in this presentation, talk about a whole lot is wildfire. And so wildfire is a serious, I think what we're hoping to get out of this next 3-year process is like a really connected way to protect those things that those areas that make sense to protect. Yeah. Because we're not saying that we would like necessarily restore the gorse, the main gorse infestation, for example. But we do want to, like, the Waipohoihoi area is really important for native birds. And also just the general health of the upper Wailuku watershed, Wailuku River watershed. Yeah, yeah. Ultimate goal. I think just connected and healthy for generations to come. Because Parker Ranch might be some of the things we don't really talk about too much is like silver pasture, where you can have trees with, if that's a hard balance to make. But but just more diversity in the landscape. Parker Ranch is gonna do cows, they're gonna do domestic cows. But is there ways that we can strategically plant trees in certain areas that could act to capture water, or provide seed in case there's fire at Parker Ranch, that they can come and plant those seeds there and then restore that forested area. Those are the kind of the bigger questions that we're looking at. Healthy and connected.
I have a question. Thanks, Cheyenne, for
Hey,
coming on here. What do you think is, I know you have a lot of obstacles, but like, what do you, like, for future planning, what do you think is one of the biggest obstacles that you face, whether that be like funding or like having enough funding to hire people or collaborations? Like, what do you think is one of the bigger goals when you're planning ahead, like 10 years ahead of time?
Sure. Yeah, so we have capacity issues. Like I can't hire 15 people. We don't have enough vehicles. We don't have enough space. Those kinds of things. The ecosystem in and of itself is pretty straightforward. I think anybody that works up there or visits Mauna Kea, you start to have an eye for, like, gorse on the landscape is not good. So, like, what do we do to kind of make that better? I think the other part of it that we don't really talk about a lot is the social part of it. So we do have, I don't know how, I'm not sure what to do about this, but, like, when I took this work, I was really thinking, oh, like, this is like a really positive thing. We're planting native trees, protecting native forests. I don't think anybody's gonna be like anti that. But we do get into things with people that think that it should just be pasture land, or that it should be used for just for hunting, for example. And then don't agree with us doing restoration because it takes land that they perceive as being used for hunting and and getting food for the family. It feels like, to them, that's being taken away. So it's the social part of it too. And I think that's why the environmental education part of it is really a big part of it, because it could be like a generational kind of change. It could be just like, we're very open. I mean, people can come up and see the work we're doing. Yeah, so we're hoping that in the long term, and then just feeling righteous in our path, like being able to say, no, I think that native forests are important, and I think it's important for the community. There's nobody on the team. We're not doing it for any selfish reasons. We're doing it because we think it's the right thing to do, and that it'll make a difference. Like, I'm hoping in 100 years, my kids' will be like, wow, I'm so glad that they made those decisions at that time, because this really makes a difference in how resilient our local community is with everything that's happening, all the changes. So, yeah, so like so infrastructure, like from a very common sense point of view, like infrastructure, capacity, and then the environment is pretty straightforward about what the activities are that we have to do, our actions, and then the people part of it, people in place. Yeah. I'm trying to do two things at one time. I'm trying to get that darn story map.
Oh, that's okay.
It's really good though. It's really good.
We can always send it out in a follow-up email.
Okay,
We
great.
can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to be mindful of time. It is about 12:52. So if there are any more questions, we can have those in the chat right now, or we can always do an email correspondent of questions as well. We do have our next webinar on October 16th with Kealoha Kini. titled Pua'ai. So if anyone
Yeah.
be on the lookout for that. Other than that, we can send out that email to all the people who registered for the Zoom, the link to the story map. But do we have any further questions, or are we good to close down? Okay. I think we're
Thanks,
good.
Cheyenne.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
Anytime.
Thank you,
Mahalo.
everyone.
Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo.
Have a good afternoon. Aloha.
Aloha.